Hello, this is Chaplain Paul, and decided to make a video that touches on the importance of standing up for our rights. We live in a time now where we think that if our rights are violated, someone else is going to defend them. We think when our rights are violated that we could go to somebody and hire somebody or go to an organization or elected officials and they will step up in defense of our rights. That is a rarity nowadays. It doesn't happen like you think. Uh, our rights are violated every day. And the fact of the matter is we're not thinking collectively, we're thinking individually. We're thinking that, well, my rights weren't violated. It didn't affect me, so I don't care. I'm not affected by that, so I don't care. When one person's rights are violated, it violates everybody's rights, period. So when we say that long-term care patients, when they're being neglected, abused, and mistreated, waiting all night long to be changed, those are violations of their civil rights, patients' rights, human rights, and constitutional rights. Most people are like, well, that doesn't affect me, so I don't care. Well, yes, it does affect you. It doesn't affect you directly, but when one person's rights are violated, it affects everybody's rights indirectly. And the consequences of remaining silent are devastating. The damage that's done when people just figure, well, that's not me, and I don't care, and what can I do about it anyway? To think that way is very damaging and tears at the fabric of our republic. It tears at the fabric of the Constitution, because the Constitution is a piece of paper with ink. It's only as good as what the people are willing to fight for and defend to back it. You could have a contract, but if you're not going to abide by that, it's the same thing with this. Here's a Bible. It does no good to sit there on the table. It does no good to read it and not do it. That's why the word says to be doers of the word and not just hearers of the word or readers of the word. We're to do it. When our rights are violated, it affects us. Maybe not now, but in the future. When people go into these facilities and they're treated horribly, it affects us in the future. It affects our children and grandchildren. We sit and we try to make investments and we try to save for retirement, and we figure, well, you know what, I'm going to do that so my children will be treated better, or at least they'll have a better chance. Well, no, they're not. Because if they don't know what their rights are, or how to defend them, protect them, enforce them, if they don't know how to exercise them, preserve them, strengthen them, if they don't know how to do that, if they're not being taught how to do that, then all of this effort in preparing for retirement is futile. Absolutely futile. I take calls every day, and somebody has to mention finances, or, Paul, your finances are not, right. You need to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I thought about this, and I said, here's what I come up with. I'm invested in Christ. I'm sacrificing. I'm putting self second for the needs of others. I'm fighting to improve the safety and quality care and long-term care. I'm serving from the heart, and not to make money or get a pat on the back or prestige or to get my name in the media or for any other reason than I love the Lord and I love the people that I serve. There is no other reason than that. But it comes at a cost. It's not a hobby. It's not a sideline. It's not something you do when you have the time. It takes real sacrifice in order to live this way. And then when you do live this way, and maybe you come short on your bills, then the world looks at that as, well, you're being irresponsible, and you're not being a good steward because you're not managing your money properly. Well, yeah, I am managing my money properly because I'm investing in the Lord. I'm investing in God's economy and not the world's economy. And that's the truth. So when we hear that Christians that are actually putting their lives on the line, their safety and well-being, by placing service above self and reaching out and helping others for the glory of God. And they're actually doing that, and they're actually sacrificing, and they're actually going out there and risking it all and risking their health and their safety and well-being. Then what we get from the world is that we're losers. We're irresponsible. You're not to do that. You're to go to work, save money, and prepare for retirement. Well, you know what? When they built the pyramids, I want you to understand this. It took slaves their whole life to build a pyramid. That was a tomb for one pharaoh. That's what we're doing. We're building pyramids. All the energy that we're putting into retirement, believe it or not, is going to go towards your health care, your medical needs, the lawyers, the doctors, and all the other snakes and vipers and vultures that come swooping in to take everything that you worked a lifetime for, because your rights were violated and you didn't do anything about it when you were healthy and had the chance. You remained silent. You went along with the world economy. And as you watch your bank account rise, you put a false sense of security in that, like almost like it's an idol. Not realizing that the very rights that you're ignoring would have protected your assets, your safety, your life, your well-being, and it's being ignored. People have got to understand this. Our rights are not individual only, they're collective. And when the homeless man gets arrested for doing nothing more than sleeping on the sidewalk because he has nowhere else to go, instead of taking that person to a facility, and I'm not talking some dump where he can get beat up and raped, but a decent, loving, caring facility that is managed by a good church or charity. When we come to the point where we arrest these people for being homeless, or we take advantage of the weak, the young, the old, the sick, and the dying, to the point where it's so inhumane that we stick our heads in the sand, because to look at it makes us want to vomit and makes us sick to our stomach, so we'd rather turn away from it and pretend it's not there. But every day that goes by, we get closer and closer and closer to that reality and being the next victims of injustice. Our rights and these laws that are been in effect for decades that protect people from being brutalized and raped, beaten, having their possessions stolen at the facility, being force vaccinated, put in isolation. My friend Al, I talked to him after I made my last video. He reminded me, they have what's called a Hoyer. A Hoyer is like a crane, and has fabric, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. And they slide it underneath the patient, and they lift the patient up, and the patient's like this, and it's like a crane. And they lift them out of the wheelchair and into the bed, or out of the bed and into the wheelchair. All right? His wife fell out of that thing 3 times. 3 times, hitting her head on the floor. What was the consequences? Nothing. He even got an attorney. The attorney was going to take the case and decided not to because he couldn't win the case. Couldn't win the case. Here you got negligence. A woman falls out of the thing, could have had permanent damage, could have broke her neck, okay, broken bones, permanent damage, and he couldn't sue, do nothing. How many times? Pastor Sean had, and I'm not going to go into his whole story, okay? His back was injured by the EMTs. They pressed so hard that they broke all his ribs and they broke vertebrae in his back. When he was on the mend, he wound up in the facility that I go to mostly. That's where I met him. He was in the courtyard, and he was able to wheel around in his wheelchair. He was on the road to recovery. He couldn't walk because he didn't have a hip, all right? He was on the road to recovery. That was the only facility you could go to where you could get the dialysis wheeled into the room, or you go to the dialysis room. All right? What happened? They didn't change him. And his shit got into the wound and caused MRSA. And this put him on a downward spiral straight into the grave. Blood clots not being treated properly, internal bleeding because the padding on the bed was too thin, toes amputated because the wound team didn't address a wound in his foot and they lied to him, coma because they get the wrong medication at the hospital. He went into a coma. Died because of a potassium spike. And yes, you know what? I had a friend of mine, he had lymphoma and he was in the hospital, and they came in and they were going to give him a potassium shot. If they had given him that potassium shot, he would have died. But he looked on the chart. He was of sound mind. Okay, he wasn't dementia or Alzheimer's or compromised, mentally, coma, semi-coma. So when they came in with the shot, he looked at the thing and said, "No, don't. I can't have that. I'm allergic. I can't have that." And they were adamant they were going to give him the shot. And then they checked, and no, it was a mistake. He would have died. Well, what if he can't defend himself that way? What if nobody's in the room to catch that? Then you die, or you go into a coma, or you have permanent damage to your health, to your body. So we have rights that we defend on the spot, but we also are responsible to defend the rights of others. When you have children whose rights are violated, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh well, that's not my kid. Yeah, oh, that's not my child. No, I don't care. I don't give a damn. It's not my grandchild. We're supposed to collectively, as a society, defend those rights of those children whose rights are being violated. All right? And I could go into a whole litany of right violation of parents and children in public schools. I could go down a whole list, but I'm not going to do that. So when the rights are violated, where is everybody? Nowhere. When the homeless rights are violated, where is everybody? No, I'm not homeless. You could be homeless in a minute. Pastor Ken, all right? Pastor Ken, I was doing his yard, and then another guy that he knew that was homeless took over and befriended him. All right, the guy's Christian. The guy is a Christian. He had a business with, I think, over 100 employees. And then COVID hit. And because of the kindness of his heart, he kept paying his employees even when the business shut down. And what happened? He went broke. Not only that, his wife divorced him. Not only that, the decree was that she was to receive like $20,000 a month because this guy had big bucks. And it put him in the poorhouse, and he's homeless. And the homelessness caused him to have a mental breakdown. So don't tell me that you don't run the risk of being homeless. We all do. One slip, one fall, one hit in the head, one mishap in life, and we're homeless. There's so many rights that the Founding Fathers gave us, and we don't even know what they are. We don't study them. Not only that, we're not taught how to protect them, defend them, preserve them, strengthen them, exercise them, or enforce them. We're not taught. And we're not taught how to engage our elected officials when they thumb their nose at our rights and laws that have been on the books for decades, and they thumb their nose, don't do it, don't have public hearings, don't have town hall meetings, don't hold agencies accountable, don't call in witnesses, and they refuse to do that. We haven't been taught on how to hold them accountable. There's no mechanism. There's nothing. It is an absolute free-for-all. You get in there, and now you're part of the club. And day one, they sit you down and say, you can do this and do that, but don't do this and don't do that. Here's your ticket to ride. Here's your ticket. All aboard. All aboard the gravy train. And if you step out of line, we're going to stop the train and kick you in the ass out into the wilderness. And you'll be blackballed. And if you think you're going to get a job, you ain't. Because we blackball you. So, enjoy the ride. All aboard. And who's the engineer? Satan. Satan is the engineer. You just hopped on board the train ride to hell. Okay? and it's all nice and fancy, and it's all dressed up as American politics, and it's all dressed up as a hayride, but it's actually a ride straight to hell. Well, I want to be on that train where Christ is the engineer, where I get on that train and it ain't all a hayride, and it ain't all fun and games, and it ain't all gimme, 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 my name is Jimmy, and it ain't all comfort and instant gratification, and it ain't all my wishes are fulfilled. No, it's a rough ride. You got big dips that go up and down, and then there's times where you're going through horrible storms, pitch blackness, being attacked by demonic forces, being brought to your knees, suffering, sacrificing. I want to be on that train because Christ is my engineer. And where he goes, I go. And if he says, Paul, I want you to leave this job that you're making $200,000 a year, and I want you to go and do this work that maybe you don't like, maybe it's not really something you're used to, but you know what? It's going to be very rewarding, because I'm going to put people in your path that you can be able to witness to, and you're going to be able to help and pray for, help lead to Christ. And by doing that, it's going to lift up your spirits, and you're going to receive peace and joy. It's going to be a rough road, Paul. It's not easy. It comes with real sacrifice. You're going to have a willingness of placing service above self, reaching out and helping others for the glory of God, placing self second, Paul. Real sacrifice, Paul. You may not be able to buy food, Paul. You may have a lot of sleepless nights, Paul. You may have to take calls and deal with people that are very difficult, Paul. But just remember, I love you. I'm the engineer. And if you stick with me, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get to paradise, we're going to get to heaven, and we're going to be able to be together for eternity. But you know what? If you want to step off the train and get on the other guy's train and have a really smooth ride of it, and have a lot of money and a lot of prestige and power and fame, instant gratification, and you're going to be treated like a movie star or a rock star, well, here you go. I'll miss you. I love you. But you have free will. There you go. You could hop on that train, or you could stay on my train. My train comes with real suffering. That train comes with real pleasure. So when I hear I'm not managing my finances, well, you know what? Walk in my shoes, man. Walk in my shoes. I think I did pretty good the last 40 years of going through a living hell. Let's see, from 1994, when my mother went into the hospital, on 3/16/1994, I didn't realize it till last year that it was 3/16. I thought it was 3/14 or 3/15. 3/16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. On 3/16/1994, my mom had been in the hospital for 3 days. They forgot to give her one of her medications, and she went into full respiratory failure. She had a mild stroke, a heart attack. In the last video I said a mild heart attack. She had a mild stroke, heart attack, renal failure, kidney failure, and other very serious health problems because they didn't give her a medication, and her body went into shock, and they had to put a ventilator down her throat, tie her to the bed, and drug her unconscious because of the trauma of the ventilator. Blood was trickling out of the side of her mouth. Can you imagine having your mother tied to the bed, drugged unconscious, 12 IVs coming out of her? My dad had prostate cancer at the time. I was on probation. My brother was in another hospital with his wife who had complications with childbirth, and my nephew was born premature. They had to drug my sister-in-law unconscious. They had to take my son, my nephew, who was my parents' first grandson, and air evac him to a different hospital. He was going to die in transport. They had to take pictures of him in case he died in transport. On the same day, 3/16/94, my mother and her first grandson, were put on ventilators on the same day. Think about that. Think about it. That started 4 years of living hell for my family, and we had our rights trampled on, pissed on, shit on, stripped away, and there was nobody to go to, and I tried. At one point, they were going to put my mother in a nursing home because Medicare will only pay for so many days, and my mother could only get Medicare and Social Security disability because she had pre-existing conditions. This is another thing, Republicans. Oh, you got to pull your bootstraps up. I don't want to have to pay for your health care. Well, how do you pull your bootstraps up if you have no boots? That's what Martin Luther King said. Someone like my mother who had a major disease ever since she was a teenager, couldn't get health insurance, so all she could have is Social Security, disability, and Medicare. All right? So what happened? When the Medicare ran out, when it runs out, you could be discharged for 1 day and go back and it kicks back in. Well, that guy, it ran out. Bill went up to over $100,000. And they wanted to put her in a nursing home. We said no. Then I was friends with a friend of mine was the son of Channel 12 News CEO, C.E. Pep Cooney. My friend Sean was friends of friends. And I said, Sean, here's the deal. I'm going to be on the roof with a shotgun to draw attention to this. Can you get a news crew over to my house so we can draw attention to this? Because I believe it's a violation of my mother's rights. If they take her out of the hospital, put her in a nursing home, they said she'd be on a ventilator for the rest of her life without our permission. And he said, yes, we had it all set up. And then I was in contact with the National Health Care Committee in Washington, D.C., and they said they had people down here, and they sent me a banner and other stuff, and I put it in the room, and when I put that banner on the wall, they crapped their pants. And they started doing their job, weaned my mother off the ventilator, and now, guess what? Instead of shipping her to a nursing home, they sent her home. They weaned her off the ventilator and sent her home. See, when you fight for your rights, this is how you do it. All right, during COVID, the regulations had changed. The regulations changed where they were allowing visits by clergy. By clergy first, and then family and clergy. When the regulation changed for clergy, I called the facility. I said, I have the regulations here. Friday I'm coming down to see Pastor Sean with Pastor Ken. No, him and Han. So they said, no, you can't do that. So I called the regional compliance director for the parent company. We're on the phone for a while. She was him and Han too. I said, look, here's the deal. I said, Friday morning, me and Pastor Ken are coming down to the facility to see Pastor Sean. I go, if you don't let us in, then we're going to go and file a complaint with the Arizona Long-Term Care Licensing Department, at which point a surveyor is going to come out on site, and that facility is going to be heavily fined. And within an hour, we worked out a visitation plan. I did that with the COVID unit, too. They had changed the regulations. My neighbor is a nurse. She works for long-term care. They changed the regulations so that COVID patients can now see patients, COVID patients can now see family members, all right? They had changed the regulations so they could see family members and clergy. Clergy was first. Now the regulations include everybody, family and clergy. But they were out of compliance for 3 months. 3 months, they didn't allow these poor people to see family or clergy when they're out of compliance. I found out about it, called the regional compliance director. So I had the regulations in my hand. These regulations come from the Health and Human Services of the United States Department. They go to these facilities. They're supposed to have meetings and implement these policies within a timely manner. They didn't do it because the COVID unit in that facility was probably getting 4 and 5 times the amount of money, and they knew it. So when I talked to this woman, she was saying, no. She knew damn well that the regulations had changed. And I said, pull up page so-and-so, page 12 of the regulations, ma'am. She did that. Oh, I see it now. Got the whole COVID unit torn down. They figured, we're just going to milk it until some pain-in-the-ass chaplain comes along and puts his foot down. This is how you fight for your rights. You don't just go along for the ride. Because you know what? If we had gone to that facility and they said, no, Chaplain Paul, you can't come in. We're not allowing that right now. You guys can't come in. Oh, okay. Give us a call when we could come in. It would have been 6 more months. Same thing with that COVID unit. Denying those people their constitutional, civil, patients, and human right to have visits. So to prevent medical mistakes, make sure their medical wishes are being honored, making sure to prevent abusive staff and other mentally ill violent patients from hurting them and abusing them and raping them and beating them to death, making sure to receive the comforts of home. making sure to receive healthy foods, making sure that they're there to make sure to prevent problems like a patient throws up and is coma, semi-coma. You could go and get the staff and it could be taken care of right away. Otherwise, it could be life-threatening, to prevent things like bed sores and rashes and infections and blisters. This is why it's so important to be by our family members and our loved ones' side. Why? To protect their rights. Well, I don't have to do that. It doesn't affect me. No, it will. One day you're going to be sitting in that bed, or someone you love will be in that bed. And when your rights are stripped away and you can't get an attorney and you're going home late at night to an empty house because your poor wife or husband are in these facilities, and you have to take time off of work, and your whole world is crashing before your eyes, then you're going to remember what Chaplain Paul said, that you better step up, fight for your rights now before that day comes, before that storm hits your house and the whole thing comes caving in like a house of cards. Because you're going to have to make a choice. What are you going to do? You're going to go to work and leave your poor wife or poor husband in one of these places to be brutalized? Or are you going to have to take time off of work to go sit with them? Just like my neighbor did. She's a long-term care nurse. What did she have to do? Take time off work to go sleep at the facility and stay there and come home twice a week just to take a shower, because she knows the reality of these facilities. Our rights mean something. They're there to protect the lives of millions of people. There are laws, federal, constitutional, civil, and patients' rights, laws, and regulations that are being trampled on and ignored. Our elected officials know it. There's no accountability. Well, God's going to hold them accountable. And like I said in my other video, one day He's going to strip away their health, their wealth, and their power and put them right in those beds. They're going to be staring at the ceiling with the call light on for 4 hours, and they're going to go, I should have listened to Chaplain Paul. You're going to be kicking yourself for not listening to me and listening to God. Have a blessed day. Remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. Read Proverbs 31, 8 and 9. Take care.